What the hell? He voked and he... And with that, we have entered the post-walking era of Beastmaster Durzag, guys. So welcome to this guide which will hopefully help you conquer the post-walking era of Beastmaster Durzag. Basically, if you walk under him, or if anyone walks under him, even for one game tick, you will get hit typeless damage, which I guess is proportional to his enrage level. In that clip, he was really enraged, so I got like 2 hit. But here's my menu, guys. I hope you enjoyed the guide. And I hope you find it useful because I've spent a lot of time gathering clips and commentating and editing. So it's taken a lot of time and I hope it helps you guys out. Please leave feedback below. But here's my menu. Obviously I recommend solo or duo. Trio is a bit iffy, a bit sketchy, a bit more for people that don't have dread nips. Solos for teams that have a lot of dread nips. Duos for teams that are like meh. I might have dread nips, I might not, but duo is probably the best method. Hope you enjoy the guide and feel free to look up anything from this main menu. Let's just get an overview of what we're doing, just so we're clear before we start diving into the methods and the tactics and the setups and so on. So if you're solo base tanking, that is exactly what you're doing. You're tanking Beastmaster Durzag by yourself throughout the whole kill, so you are the only one it should be focusing on. So you'll just be in a corner throughout the whole fight. You should not move at all. If you move, you will get bled and trampled and you will die. And this method obviously depends on a ton of dread nips. Most people in your team should have dread nips, if not all of them. Otherwise it could be quite difficult because dread nips obviously delay the time between his attacks and make it easier for you. And you stay alive by cycling through defensives, namely barricade, devotion, reflect and debilitate. Duo base tanker is obviously easier and my preferred method. It doesn't depend on your team having dread nips, so it basically means that one person tanks until the pets are dead. When the pets are dead is when Beastmaster goes enraged and he goes on a rampage and he starts killing everyone. So you just basically need to hook off each other once you know your defensives are run out, and you can take a breather while your partner is tanking it and let your defensives recharge, and vice versa. So this is a really good way. It doesn't depend on as many dread nips as I said, but the most important thing is that you don't get in the way. So that's why I recommend standing, where I've shown on this particular slide. And trio base tanking is a bit weird. I don't really like it. I wouldn't do it unless you really need to. Like if you don't have enough people, if you don't have 2 people that can duo successfully and you don't have any nips in your team or something, then trio is probably a last ditch method. It basically relies on 3 of you voking because there'll be no nips, so he will do his attack really quickly. But the problem is you need to not get in the way of each other, so you need to stand at the right spots so that once you voke he doesn't sort of drag anyone along or walk over anyone and kill them. So it's quite a nifty little method, a tricky little method. I wouldn't use it, but I'll put it in for completeness sake. Before we can get into the setups and what to actually do in the kill, there is one very useful thing you need to take, and is the dread nip. I was initially tempted to just put the dread nip on this page, a massive dread nip, but then I realized there's also a few other things that could be useful. So the dread nip is obviously the most useful thing you can take because of its ability to reduce time between special attacks and normal attacks from Beastmaster and make life easier for base tanking. Penance Aura if you're using Spirit Shield, and obviously the Rage Armor if you have them, either the actor or the normal version. The normal version will not degrade if you use it at raids, so you can use any of the 2 versions depending on which style you choose. Obviously it doesn't really matter which style you choose because you're just tanking. And then finally we move on to the spells and the curses. So if you're on Ancient Magics, I recommend you take Shadow Barrage because its effect is really useful, especially combined with the Dark Form curse. Dark Form will double the chance that when you cast an ability the effect of Shadow Barrage activates, which is to reduce damage incoming damage by 5% for 10 seconds. And the Emerald Aurora spell is actually pretty useful, but I haven't really tested it. I think the Shadow Barrage is more useful, so I wouldn't use it. The Shield Dome is also a very useful ability if you're going to be standing in one spot, which you are if you're going to be soloing or even if you're duoing. And the Intercept spell is very unique, I'd say. So for 5 seconds, instead of invoking Beastmaster onto you, you can just cast a spell on the person that's tanking and you take their damage with a 5% damage reduction. So you could basically Cade and then use the spell on them and then, you know, take their damage for 5 seconds and take no damage because you K'd it. But in my opinion, the best spellbook to use is a normal spellbook because of Enfeeble, which will reduce damage to you for 1 minute by 10%, which is better than all the others. Also, vulnerability obviously increases damage you do to Beastmaster by 10% for a minute. So I prefer the normal spellbook, but haven't fully tested these out. So these are possible things you can take. But definitely the most important one is the Dreadnought. Now the reason I've included one setup for all 3 different types of base tanking is because they're all pretty simple, and obviously if you have the Primeval or any of the Raid's gear it's advantageous because of the special effect. Otherwise I would use the Port's armor. It's not necessary to use power armor, T90 power, because it's, well, you're not DPSing, so you don't really want to waste the charges because it degrades to dust, of course. Amulets of Souls are given. Ooh, I'm being invited. So guys, this is how you get into Beastmaster. You accept an invite if someone invites you. Anyway, back to the setup. So AOS is pretty self-explanatory for the 10% extra damage reduction when you're protecting from melee. And the Ring of Death is very handy, of course, because you will lose a lot of money unless you have it. Penance, only if you... I wouldn't really use it unless you have a Spirit Shield, unless you're using a Spirit Shield. You can use range or melee, it doesn't matter. Just make sure you have a shield, or if you're using range, bring a strike bow or a dark bow. Now I didn't really want to buy seismics just for tanking, so I'm just using a Nox with a Virtus 1 switch. And as for the spells, as I just mentioned, you can use any of them. I've got the ancient magic ones here as well, but obviously I won't be using them. I'm on normals. I personally like the Enfeeble spell because it lasts for 1 minute and it reduces damage with 10%, which I believe it's simple and doesn't take up too much space either, so I like that one. And Dreadnips, of course, are given, overloads and all that stuff. I would take this many Super Restore Flasks if you're taking a Spit Shield. If you're not taking a Spit Shield, you probably don't need this many. And I didn't fill up my yak, but basically my yak setup is this is my yak setup, so just a few brews dotted around with mostly rocktails. And yeah, this is my setup. As I said, you can change it out for melee with Dragors and maybe a Divine Shield, Divine Spirit Shield, or a Malevolent Shield, and with range you can obviously use a Nox Bow and a Dark Bow or a Strike Bow, or Ascensions and Elysian or Vengeful, that kind of thing. So it's pretty self-explanatory. This is my setup. And yeah, it's pretty good. It works out pretty well for me. So you choose the path of a solo Beastmaster tank. It's actually a very glorious path, and it's actually a pretty successful path as long as most people in a team had Dreadnips. And I'm being hypercritical here because I don't have them, because I just ran out the same day. But basically, Evoke him, Devotion, he will walk under you a bit just as he gets into position, but ignore that. And then go to the southeast corner, making sure you're not trampling anyone on the way there, unless you want to PK them, of course. And then it's just a simple case of cycling through your defensive. Now, I use Barricade here, and it's really important that you don't relax, because as soon as I use Barricade, he happened to use his Enrage mechanic, which reset all my defensives. So do not relax when you use Barricade and think you're safe for 10 seconds. You could still get it cancelled. And as whenever you see that message, you have to use Freedom then. Do not use Freedom randomly. Always save it for when you get that message so that you reduce the Enrage by 1 level. There you go. I'm going to use Freedom now, I think, and I just used it. So Furious, I think, is the highest level of Enrage. And you just got to cycle through your defensives while you're waiting. And then he will also cancel it when he says "Here boy," as you just see there. He said "Here boy," and he cancelled all my defensives. That's when he spawns the second pet, of course. And those are the only 2 ways he will cancel your defenses. When he says he's become furious with you, or increases his enrage, or when he spawns his second pet, or when the bomb bursts on your face. If you see the bombs later on. So just wait, take it easy until the pets are dead. So as you can see, Rob is backing up here in case I die, and he will use all his attacks until the pets are dead, and then he'll reduce some of his attacks. So he'll use the one where he drags everyone in and then flails his arms around. So all that sort of stuff you got to be watchful for. But just cycle through your defensive, you should be absolutely fine. Use Enfeeble, and then use your attackers when they get on him will use Dreadnips. At this point it gets really easy because the frequency of his attacks and his special attacks will decrease dramatically when Dreadnips are used. So when the attackers use Dreadnips, you can breathe a sigh of relief because it will be easier. Now when it gets to 750k, the real danger starts. So this is when when they start to kill their pets, and he massively increases damage you take. When you see that message, the beast bites his flesh into you, he will also increase damage from everything he does. So you got to be careful about that, and that will actually wear out pretty soon. So just cycle through your defensives. Do not let your HP drop like I did there. Gotta eat up, and do not attempt to click on the bombs, because if you do, you could walk under him and you could be 2-hit. So you gotta be very, very careful here. This is the danger part. If your team do not use dreadnips, you are dead. Thankfully my team have tons of dreadnips, so the frequency of attacks are very few and far between, which is why I can tank pretty easily. Cycle through my defensives, use my freedom whenever I see the message, and it should be fairly straightforward after that. You're massively reliant on your team using dreadnips here, so you want to make sure that there's someone calling out to use dreadnips all the time. And if you want a particular rotation, I like to use Cade first, and then build up to devotion and reflect, and use resonance whenever possible, making sure I only use resonance when the charges aren't on me, and always be vigilant for the fact that he will reset your defensives if he uses one of his enrage mechanics. So it should be fairly easy if you follow what I did in this kill. It wasn't a perfect kill, but it was good enough in my opinion. Okay, so here's an example of what you shouldn't be doing. I'm getting absolutely shreked here because I did not use barricade when I could have done. I should have eaten up after I used Cade, because when I eat up now my adrenaline drops and I can't use Cade, which is bad. And to add to that, he's doing his bomb attack now, which could explode on me and reset my abilities, and he also reset my abilities by becoming furious. Now I should have realized that my Cade is on cooldown, so I can't use my Cade. For some reason I'm waiting for my Cade instead of eating up, because my Cade would take like 10 seconds to come back on, and that means there was no backup, and it goes on the DPSs, and the bombs explode as well. That's just disaster waiting to happen. You need to be very careful with this. You shouldn't be risking as I did here. So, duo base tanking, you say. This is actually my preferred method because 1, it puts less stress on you than solo, and 2, if you're the secondary base tank, your services aren't required until the pets are dead and Beastmaster's at 750k HP. So if you're the primary base tank, you simply evoke it as usual, as you do for solo, devotion, and then go to the southeast corner, making sure you're not running over any of your teammates. And here I'm in the wrong position, so what I tried to do was Cade and run to my position without having the 1.8k bleed, but unfortunately it reset my Cade with its enrage mechanic, which it can do throughout the fight, so you got to be careful there. And now I just start using my defensives. Now my partner comes into the right position for voking after he killed off the charges. As I said, he's not really required to do his voking duties until later on, so he's just DPSing and helping out with the DPS really, and killing the charges off, getting them off me if possible. And I am it's very easy, simply stay alive and keep your HP high. It does not hit you high in this particular part of the fight until you reach 750k HP. So you can be safe in the knowledge that you will not get one hit unless you're less than half HP, which I am. I shouldn't be. I don't know why I'm doing that, but you should just be cycling through your defensives, so devotion, freedom, barricade, and so on. And here, if you look, my partner gets dragged in and he surges away. That is exactly what you should be doing if you get dragged in. Do not try to run away. You'll probably run through Beastmaster and you'll probably get trampled and you'll probably die. So surge away like he did and just rotate between your defensives like I do here. And wait until the pets are dead so that you can begin your real test when you need to concentrate really hard. Also be aware that when the beast bites you, as you can see there, it will do increased damage for a bit. So just keep your HP high and then it will say the beast bites have passed away. And here's something you shouldn't be doing.
I got your bomb.
No you don't, you're dead.
What?
You noob! Yep, that's what happens when you walk under Beastmaster. Here's another unfortunate victim. He gets dragged, as you can see, and he tries to run away. Bad idea, bro. You should have surged away like I told you. So yeah, good fight. But let's look at some good methods for when to switch tanks and making sure both tanks are alive and the last 750k of Durzag's HP. So if you're not on TS, a good way to judge when your fellow tank needs help is when his Cade runs out or when his devotion runs out. When he's used both of them and they're about to run out, you know you need to evoke it, and when they're getting damaged a lot, there you can see his Cade ran out. He devotion first and then his Cade ran out. Now I'm invoking it, I devotion, and then I should Cade now, soonish. Yeah, I will Cade eventually, but when my Cade runs out, he will evoke it back again. And that's basically it. You just both devotion and then Cade. Don't try and do too many other things. Reflect isn't that helpful, it still damages you. So when your Cade and your devotion runs out, that's when you need to evoke back as a tank. And if you do those things, it should be a very simple method. Duo base tank, it should be very simple, even more simple if you both use nips. But that is the basic tactic of duo base tanking. As I said, your duo partner is not required until 750k HP, so they can freely DPS, they can do whatever they want, they don't need to stand there until 750k HP, they can go kill the pets or whatever they want. Now, trioing isn't my favorite method and I really wouldn't recommend it. I've just put it in for the sake of completeness here. As you can see, I've started off pretty badly. I'm getting trampled left, right and center and almost died before I even got into position. But the advantage of this method, the only advantage of this method, is that the other two base tanks actually can DPS, all out DPS Durzag, and while the rest of the team is killing the charges and the pets, you three can get it down to 750k pretty quickly, so that you don't have to wait that extra bit of time for the team to get it down to 750k. And I believe this is the best orientation for trio, in my opinion. You just need to make sure no one walks away or walks one square away, because it could mess up the whole orientation and make people get trampled and die pretty easily. So that's the advantage. That is the only advantage of this method, is that if there are not enough nips in your group, so if say your whole team does not have any dread nips, this method is pretty much essential, because 2 people won't be able to tank it without nips, so you probably need 3 people to rotate the books. But it's also pretty AIDS, as you can see. So this guy for some reason walks across and then walks under him and then gets smacked and dead. So yeah, that is one of the things that could happen, and now it's just the duo base tank method, which is what I would have suggested in the first place. We're not in the right position for it, that's given already, but eventually I also die. But this method just illustrates that if your team doesn't have dread nips, you're forced to do things in a different way. You could do it in a more orderly fashion, but here I try to click on the bombs and I die again, which is really annoying. I really hope they change this. Like, it doesn't make sense that you're trying to defuse the bomb and you die when you're trying to defuse the bomb. It's just a bit annoying, more than a bit annoying. Here is an example of how things can seem really smooth and going well, but then they can turn around in a matter of seconds. So here I Cade and things seem to be going well. The 3 base tanks are all in the right place, and then he points his finger and the charges wreak havoc on everyone. And to add to that, the pet comes and bites me as well, which isn't very useful. And then he does his errant attack and kills a few people. And then the base tank moves position slightly so that I am getting hit by the attacks that he should have been tanking as well. So I have to move out the way, and then he does the bomb attack, and then I have to click on the bomb, and then I try to go back and attack Beastmaster, but then I get hit by 7k for some reason from nowhere, even though I'm quite far away, and then he does a ranged attack and I'm dead. So things can go wrong. Make sure that doesn't demotivate you. This isn't just for trio base tanking, it's for all of them, especially solo and trio. But duo, it shouldn't go wrong nearly as much as these two. So I hope you realize that it's not going to be easy, and I hope you keep persevering. But thanks for watching this video, guys. Really hope it helped, and please check out our North tanking guide if you want to see another tanking guide. This time it's for Yakamaru, of course. But yeah, we'll see you guys next time.